Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Giants Spire live in the bye week. Here we are. We are live simultaneously on TikTok and YouTube, talking about this team, talking about different. I'm not. Talking about different things. Let's have a conversation. So I really haven't done a live stream in a week. Last time I did a live stream was the Patriots game, and that was a disaster. But I did this last year. I went live on the bye week, and we really talked about the struggles with this team, what they need to do to go forward, how do they overcome their challenges, and the current state of the team. And we'll wait till more people come live on TikTok. Obviously, the Giants aren't playing today, so I don't know how many people are going to join the live on TikTok. But I hope to have a few people come here and chime maybe their ideas, maybe what they're thinking in terms of, not necessarily like how to fix the team, but where do we start and how do we get out of it? And I think there's a lot of people have a lot of thoughts about the coaching staff, obviously Joe Shane, the draft picks, the coach, just pretty much everything, ownership, where they currently stand as an NFL team. But I appreciate it. Yes, sir, says, what's up, man? Terrible team we are. Tough to continue podcasting, but I love it. Almost at 300 subs, you two. That's fantastic. Yes, sir. Listen, you just got to keep, you got to keep going on the grind. You got to keep, progressing. You got to keep just chugging out the content. It's tough to do when we suck. It's really tough to do when we suck. But this is the reality of the situation. But yes, we are bad. And actually, here's the thing. We have the first pick in the draft right now. The Saints and Titans both won their games today, which means the Giants have their first pick in the draft, which is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Now, will that stand at the end of the year? I doubt it. I'm sure the Giants will find a way to win 2 games and kind of claw their way out of the first pick, even though the first pick doesn't really matter for them a whole lot because they're not picking a quarterback. Tyler says the Giants should bring back Daniel Jones. So Daniel Jones had an Achilles injury today, which is awful. He's been playing great for the Colts. It's just unfortunate that he is now injured again. He just had a tough injury history. I am Kyle L says, not sold on Dart yet. The bar was set so low. Any progress seems bigger than it is. I suppose I understand. I'm not gonna attack you for not believing in Dart, but I think that if you look at Dart from a perspective of like, well, we could have a lot of different quarterbacks on this team, and he's a guy that we got in the first round. We traded back up to get him. And when you watch him, you really believe in him. And I was not the biggest believer in Dart when we drafted him. I was always nervous about one thing, which is really become more and more true after the weeks have progressed, is his recklessness. I loved his game. I loved the way he threw the ball, but his recklessness was a big red flag to me. And it stood out on tape when you watched him in college at Ole Miss. And it's translating into the league. He basically lives in the blue tent. He gets smacked across the field. He has one concussion already. And that hit last week against the Patriots, that can't happen. Like that, just step one out of the, if he stepped out of bounds a millisecond earlier, we would have had a first down 15 yards. But he's such a gamer, and I respect his game. At the same time, you got to know when to lay it on the line or not. But I really do see, and I understand that you're not sold on Dart because I understand your perspective of any progression is good progression. I get it. It's tough to be sold on something that you've just struggled to root for time and time again. But I think it's a different situation with Dart. Dart is, again, he has potential to be a franchise quarterback in this league. I mean, you can see it. I can see it. A lot of people can see it. And it's really fun to watch him. And when there are very clear flashes of, there's flashes of brilliance with Dart, and you want to see that continue. And We'll see. Young Devontae says, let's go G-Men. Let's go G-Men. Young Manassi says, get dart weapons. He doesn't need to risk those plays. He has no one to throw him to. He's got to make something happen. So, again, at this point, we're 2-11. We have the first pick in the draft currently. Let's talk about the draft. I've wanted to put out talking about the draft for a while because I don't like talking about the draft. It just, I don't like talking about it. It just irks me when we're talking about it in November, October, but fine. It's December, 5th, 7th. Let's talk about the draft. Number one Giants fan on earth says we have the number one pick. Yes, we do. Now, is that going to last? I doubt it. I'm sure we'll have a top 5 pick, but for now we have the first pick. Let's talk about the draft. Realistically, if we're picking top 5, we're pretty much going to get who we kind of want to, because I'm sure people are going to want a quarterback or a situation up there. I'm sure of it. Now, I don't know. Again, we're not going to know the situation of the draft until the season's over, obviously. But guys, let's ask the chat. If we're picking top 5, which is, I think is more likely than not, what are we thinking? I mean, what are we thinking with the third pick or the top 5 pick? I'm in a situation where I want a receiver. I understand that Malik Neighbors is injured. I understand that Wando Robinson might get signed. It depends if Joe Shane stays on this year, but we will see what happens. We'll see what happens after the year, and we'll talk about that in the chat. We'll talk about that later, about the Joe Shane situation. Obviously, I understand the question. I understand your question. I want a receiver. I hope we re-sign Wando Robinson. I love Wando Robinson. I think he's the best slot receiver in the league. I said that in a video I made a couple weeks ago. I think he is. By every metric he is. He's fantastic. And what he's had to do, he's had to step up in a situation where, obviously he's not been on a lot of good rosters, especially with this team. And Darius Slayton, he's a hit or miss, but I think as a wide receiver 3, a lot of people like look at him as a, top tier receiver, especially when you judge him too harshly. I think for a wide receiver 3 contract, he's fine. He's not going to give you crazy moments, but he'll give you a crazy moment like he did it like a few weeks ago when he caught that ball. I don't know who it was, against the Packers or something. But I think a receiver. Carnell Tate from Ohio State is a prospect that a lot of people look at saying that's a great wide receiver 2 option. Look, I think that pairing a wide receiver 2 up alongside Malik Neighbors would really elevate this offense. And along with Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterbo, Malik Neighbors, Wando Robinson, if you sign him back. I know people like to hate on Theo Johnson, but Theo Johnson, I think, is a good tight end. I think this offense can be really special next year, but you have to get the right coaches to maximize these players. It's one thing to draft the players, but it's another position to have the right coaches to maximize the players. But I think it's important to get a wide receiver 2, a solid one, if the pick we have. Again, I see a situation where we trade back. I really do. If we are 1 or 2 picking in the draft and people want that kid from Indiana, Mendoza, I mean, that's a possibility. We won't know until the year's over. We could trade back. Who knows? We have no idea. I do see a situation where this year you might not be looking at the prospects saying, hey, we could trade back. But I think you might take BPA. Caleb Downs, obviously, AJ47 said it too. Caleb Downs, safety from OSU, very top prospect. That's another safety. Giants need safety help. Giants need help everywhere, basically. Obviously, you look at the roster and you go, but you decide if you want to take a BPA, you trade back, I think. But right now, I'm in the position of a receiver, a solid number 2 wide receiver to pair up against Malik Neighbors to really make this offense thrive, to really make this offense explode and to be an actual threat in the league. And again, we won't know until we get the coach, but I really do believe that if you get a number 2 wide receiver in here, Jackson Dart, Malik Neighbors, Cam Scatterbo, Theo Johnson, you re-sign Wando Robinson, Carnell Tate, or Jordan Tyson, I forgot Jordan Tyson, ASU wide receiver as well. Another option there. So you have your pick. This is a very strong draft class, not necessarily for quarterbacks, but a lot of skill positions, very strong draft class. So you're going to have your pick. And if they do decide to trade back, We will see. Let's talk to the chat real quick. Toran says Wandale is really good, though. I understand Wandale is really good. I think they should re-sign him. I think he's great in the slot. I think Wandale plays his best when he is not the primary focus of attention. Tone says kicker, receiver, O-line, and coach. Sure. We need to draft a kicker or find a kicker. I mean, obviously that was there are a lot of problems with this team. We'll get to all of them. Number one Giants fan on earth says Tyson or Downs, in my opinion. I can respect it. Caleb Downs or Carnell Tate. That seems to be the kind of unanimous decision among Giants fans, whether it's Downs or another wide receiver. I think that's the unanimous decision, but we understand it. They shouldn't waste a draft pick on a kicker. They need a kicker. They need a kicker. They need a punter and a kicker. They got to get Jamie Gillen out of there. Let's switch gears here. Let's talk special teams. They need to get Jamie Gillen out of there. They need to get Graham Gano out of there. They need a whole reset there. The only thing I'd keep is the long snapper. Casey Kreider? He's fine. Not a concern of mine. Kicker and a punter we need. Whose fault is that? They need a whole new special teams unit. They do. Whether it's a draft, whether it's free agency, I don't care. They need one. They can't go into next year without addressing that, though. That's a fact. Who is on my head coach wish list? A-Rod says. My head coach wish list. It's funny because I really haven't given it much thought about who would be the right head coach for this team. There's a lot of names out there. And look, I think this is a very desirable head coaching job. I think more than the Titans, obviously, even if they have Cam Ward, I think this team has a solid foundation. I think we have to address that. And obviously we'll get to it as we go further in the stream, but I really do believe this head coaching job will be desirable. Look, whether they go for a guy that's never done it before, whether they go for a guy like Mike McCarthy, I don't know. We can't make the decision. I can't make the decision, but I do think that what they really want to do, especially with this team, is to really hold players accountable. Maybe that's something that Dable never did. It seems that Dable, to me, was kind of more of a lax coach, not necessarily a player's coach, but more of like he'll let shit kind of go for the sake of letting it go if the locker room is in a good place, right? But they just weren't winning, so there was no accountability. So when you lose a bunch of games and you have Abdul Carter missing meetings and you got people fucking spitting shit on Twitter, it becomes ugly. It becomes messy. And now you're seeing, and we'll talk about Abdul Carter. We'll talk about all of that. We got a lot to talk about. This is a whole bunch of problems going on with this team. There's a lot of shit to cover. And I mean, I understand. We have the first pick in the NFL draft. By all accounts, we're the worst team in football this year. Now, I don't believe that's true. I believe we actually have some talent on the team. But regardless, guys, before we continue with the stream, I want you guys, for the sake of the New York Giants, for the sake of Jackson Dart, just tap the screen for me. Look, I'm a passionate Giants fan. I do this all the time. I come on here and I talk to the community. I come on here to try to bring joy and happiness to the community. Only because this is rough. This is really rough. And this is a rough time for Giants fans. We are the worst team in football for the past God knows how many years. So it's been rough. So just tap that screen for your boy. I appreciate all the love. A-Rod says, we need a culture coach, a leader who can keep our locker room in check. I think you're right, A-Rod. Now, who is that? I have no idea. Honestly, I'm sure they're going to do their due diligence. I'm sure they're going to bring in a lot of people to come in. I'm sure people are going to want this job. Let that be very clear. This is not a job that people don't want, all right? This is not a job where you look at the New York Giants and say, that's a bad situation. You're going to really spend your time in there. Can I give you some hope? You could turn this shit around really fast, right? You can turn this team around really, really fast. All right. Now, I know me saying that is kind of insane, but I really do believe you can, right? You have a very solid offensive foundation. What does that mean in the grand scheme of things? Not much. But the excuse is you need to let the head coach kind of, figure it out. Not really. This is one of the most important head coaching hires in history for the New York Giants, and they cannot fuck up Jackson Dart's development. They cannot do it. You have a kid that has the potential to be a superstar in this league. You cannot fuck up his development, because if you do, I don't even want to say what would happen, but you cannot mess up Jackson Dart's development, because he has the potential to be a superstar. And you also have the potential to turn this team around very quickly. You do. I don't think this team is complete. Nowhere near complete. But I do believe you have a foundation of players that can actually be beneficial to your team. What you don't have is depth. And let us now switch the conversation to Joe Schoen. All right, let's talk about Joe Schoen, what he's brought to the team, what his problems are, and what I think Joe Schoen should do when the season is over. Joe Schoen's been here for 4 years. Obviously, his first year was a great one. Now, can you give him a lot of credit for his first year here? No. That was basically a Dave Gettleman roster with very minor Joe Schoen pieces added onto it. It wasn't exactly a full Joe Schoen roster. Every single year, we've gotten worse and worse and worse. That's just true. We went 6-11, 3-14, and now we're sitting at 2-11. We've gotten worse and worse and worse. The past 3 years, every single year, it's been depression, depression, depression. Why? There's a lot of reasons why. But the main fact, and I said this a few weeks, I don't know when I said this like a few months ago in a video I made. The Giants have a depth problem. And they've had a depth problem for about 3 years. But no one could seem to figure it out. There's a problem with depth on this team. It's happened with the offensive line before. It's happened with the wide receivers before. It's happened this year with the defensive backs. It's happened before with the run defense. As soon as this team gets any injury to a starter, they don't know what to do. It's a depth problem. And whether you want to call it coaching, whether you want to call it poor, roster management, it all comes back to Joe Schoen. It's his fault. It's his fault. Because how do you really give him the credit that he deserves? You could give Joe Schoen credit. Give him credit for Brian Burns. I give him credit. Give him his flowers for Brian Burns. You want to give Joe Schoen flowers for Cam Scadaboo? Give him his flowers. You want to give him credit for Neighbors? Fine. Give him credit. For Dart, even though everyone says Joe Schoen did not want Jackson Dart, fine. He drafted him. He made the trade. Give him credit for Jackson Dart. That's fine. You want to give him credit for the good picks? I'll give him credit. But for every Brian Burns, there's a Deontay Banks. For every Wando Robinson, there's a Jalen Hyatt. For every good decision he's made, there's a bad one. I give him credit for a lot of things, but you can also knock him for the things that he's messed up. You want Evan Neal. Regardless, I would have drafted Evan Neal. I'm sure a lot of people would have drafted Evan Neal. He drafted him. That's a big red X. Kayvon Thibodeau is not a number 7 pick. Or 5 pick. Sorry, he's not a number 5 pick. He's a good player, but he's not a number 5 pick. You traded up for Deontay Banks. He's healthy scratched. You traded up for Jalen Hyatt. He's non-existent. Yet these players are all still on the roster. Why? Because he has to be correct. The jury's still out if these people are still on the roster. If they're gone, he messed up. But they're still on the roster because, why? He has to be correct. The accountability is nowhere. I don't think, at least since the Abdul Carter incident, I've seen no accountability in this organization in years. There's no accountability. And when Joe Schoen came back last year, his press conference was, look, we miscalculated in the 2022 draft or the 2023 draft. We made some miscalculations, right? We had our problems there. right? It's about understanding those mistakes and moving past it, right? Fair, all right? However, they never cut anybody that we all knew were problems. We all knew Deontay Banks was a problem last year, but you still brought him back. Why? Because he was a number one draft. He was a first-round draft pick that Joe Shane traded up for, and he had to be correct. It's a problem. I don't want Joe Shane here next year. I don't. And I made this very clear earlier in the year. I don't want him back. I don't. It's time to blow it up. It's time for a reset. Unfortunately. And I hate saying that because now we got to find a new general manager, but I don't want him. He's made this bad decision after bad decision, and I can't defend him. And for every good decision he's made a worse one. Jalen Hyatt was an awful draft pick. I loved it at the time, but that's his job. That's not my job to draft players. That's his job too. And the fact that Joe Shane can't take any accountability is depressing. And it really frustrates me. So I do want Joe Shane gone because I don't think his presence in the Giants is going to prevent the team. Look at what this team has done. There's no semblance of progression. It'd be a different story if we won a couple of games this year. It'd be a different story if we won like 6 games by this point. It'd be a different story if we won 4. We've won 2. And those 2 wins were great wins. But how many wins could have we had if we had a better coaching staff? Maybe more. How many wins would he have if we have better depth? Maybe more. I understand it's a little bit chaotic right now in the Giants facility because right now a sense of leadership is kind of overbearing for them. Unfortunately, John Mara is battling cancer. Nobody wants that. We have to make a decision about what to do with Joe Shane. The fact that he's not gone yet, I understand you need to have some stability in the building just to make decisions. I understand it's hard to kind of drop the hammer on that because that's when you let everybody know you are officially starting over. But you got to make a decision. You can't mess Jackson Dart up. You can't. Do you really trust Joe Shane to lead this team to a Super Bowl? Be honest. Because that's what we're doing, right? That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to go to a Super Bowl. We're trying to go to a Super Bowl. That's the goal. Did everyone forget that's the goal? Because a lot of people, I think, forgot that's the goal, especially in the facility. That's the goal every single year, regardless of what the team looks like, regardless if you think, oh, they got no shot. That's the goal for every single team. Did we forget that's the goal? Do you really believe that Joe Shane is the guy to lead this team to a Super Bowl? Really? I don't. And if you say you do, I'd love to know your reasons. I'd love to know your reasons. Frankie Norris, you should have your own radio podcast gig. I appreciate that comment. I appreciate you, brother. I do have a podcast. Not really a podcast, but I do this shit on YouTube. Obviously, I have the TikTok account. I appreciate it. What's your thoughts on Kafka? Anyway, we'll get to Jenna's comment in a second. I don't want Joe Shane here. I know that's laying it out, saying we got more problems here and we're starting over officially. But I don't trust in my heart that this guy can lead us to a championship. There's nothing about what he's done. I can give him all the praise in the world for Malik Neighbors. I can give him all the praise in the world for Brian Burns. Fantastic decisions, fantastic picks, fantastic trades. For every one of those, it's a Deontay Banks. It's a Jalen Hyatt. It's an Evan Neal. It's Josh Azudu. It's Corey. It's bad. And it's the same problems every year. Bad run defense, bad depth, and bad coaching. And if we're trying to blame somebody, who do you look to? The general manager. Drew Phillips. Tyler Newman sucks. So Jenna asked me what my thoughts on Kafka was. I I like what the offense has done this year. I think that's a clear, that is a clear point of progression. The offense actually looks better than years past. I think we can all agree. When Russell was in, not really, but I think when Jameis and Dar have been in, it's been good. Last week, I don't know what the fuck that was. You want to give credit to the Pats, fine, but what the hell was that? They look like they just forgot their whole scheme. By the way, this defense has no scheme. I don't know if you saw last week's game. I bet you all did. Sam said I think Malik Neighbors is undersized. I think he's like 6'2", 6'3". That's a crazy comment. The Giants defense has no scheme. The Giants defense has no scheme. I don't know if you saw it last week. They have no scheme. They have no scheme. They are putting players in places and they are just letting them go. I mean, again, the defense was so bad last week, and obviously, when you were going to get rid of Shane Bowen, you're not going to expect this defense to just automatically be good. Like, that was never going to happen. And even with Shane Bowen was going to stay, it was never going to fix itself. You never had a chance. But they have no scheme. They have no scheme. There's no way he's 190. He's not slot. Sam, I don't know what to tell you, man. I was almost ready to name him the best wide receiver in the league before he got injured. This year, I was so close to, and then he got injured, and it's unfortunate. I've seen him grab balls out of the air. He is not undersized, and even if he is undersized, he's grabbing balls out of the air like there's no tomorrow. So I understand your comment, but I disagree. I think Kafka has been fine. Pause on that. He's been fine. He's not going to be head coach material. Obviously, this year he's made some bad decisions late in the game. Last week when we punted, it was like 4th and 1, and it was the second quarter. We were down like 20, and he punted. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what do you have to lose? Like, what do you have to lose? You are 2-10. You suck. You're down 20 in a hostile environment, and you're punting it. Really, really. But who cares? I mean, the season's a wash anyways. But again, it's at the point, it's like, you got to just give something. Like, you are so dead. Look at your record. He's not head coach material. I think you can give him credit for the offense. I think the offense has been better. The offense has progressed. The offense has looked decent. They've put up 30 points a lot this year, which they haven't been able to do in a long time, especially with their quarterback situation. They've looked good. Like, they looked decent. But, that's one half of the story. Kafka's not going to be here next year. You're going to have a whole new cast of characters in the front, in the coaching staff. So we'll see who that is. But, we'll see. I'm not sure about what direction the Giants are going to go. Who are they going to get for a head coach, whether it's defensive, offensive, whatever. And again, we'll see. But again, this is just it's a bad organization right now. And let's talk about something else that I think that is important to kind of address. The Patriots game last week, tough game to watch, tough game to sit through, obviously. Do you think we bring back McFadden? Good question, Nick. I would like to bring back McFadden. I think he is a solid linebacker. Obviously, his coverage issue, he has a little bit of a coverage issue. He can't really get in coverage on third down. But I think he's a great tackler. He plays hard. It's unfortunate that he got injured this year. I don't think he's coming back. I know that they said that he might be coming back later in the year, but at this point, I don't think he will. But who knows? I'd like to keep McFadden, but I mean, again, it's all predicated on Joe Shane staying or not. I could see him coming back if Shane stays. I see him leaving if he doesn't. But we'll see. Who do you think we will draft? Carnell Tate. Jordan Tyson, Caleb Downs. I think those are the three names that I think a lot of Giants fans are saying. Obviously, it's December. That could change in months. I think I said at this point last year, I said Shador at this point last year, and obviously I was dead wrong. And then I switched to Abdul Carter. Oh, we got to talk about Abdul Carter. Let's talk about Abdul Carter. What positions do those guys play? Wide receiver and safety. You don't think we take a wide receiver from the draft? Okay. Look, I respect everyone's opinion. I understand that you might not want a wide receiver. I understand. You might be thinking we have a good wide receiver. I think we should take a wide receiver. I think we should draft a wide receiver somewhere in the draft, not necessarily the first round. We don't need wide receivers. Sam. You don't think we need defense? We need defense. Of course we need defense. We have bad depth. You don't think we need wide receivers? Outside of Malik Neighbors, who's here next year? Who? Darius Slayton? Who? Who else? Who else is here next year on our wide receiver room? Other than Darius Slayton and Malik Neighbors? Who? I never said Wanda was leaving. Wanda's a free agent. And if Joe Shane doesn't come back next year, I don't know. He's not. Who knows? I'd love to have Wanda Robinson, but right now he's not on contract. And even if you do bring back Wanda Robinson, okay, fine. You got Wanda Robinson, Darius Slayton, and Malik Neighbors. Who else? Jalen High is gone. He sucks. You want Isaiah Hodgins back? Fine. He's a good depth piece. That's decent. Sam, what happens if Wanda Robinson breaks his leg? You're thinking too front heavy here. You're thinking too front heavy. You're like Joe Shane with your thinking. You're thinking like Joe Shane here. You're thinking, oh, you have a great wide receiver room. Look at those guys. Those guys are great. Soon as one goes down, which is bound to happen, we're playing football, you're fucked. And that's every year with every position group. Sam is pro rage bait. He might be rage bait. I'm just trying to prove a point to Joe Shane's mentality, because this is Joe Shane's mentality in terms of his thought process, because this has happened every single year. Let's cut the draft talk for right now. Let's talk Abdul Carter. All right, let's talk Abdul Carter. Let's get some options from the chat. I was a big Abdul Carter guy in the draft. I wanted Abdul Carter a lot. I thought he was great at Penn State. He just was on a different level than a lot of other kids, and I think he was great. And this year, he's been not impressing. Obviously, in the box score, he's brought you no sack. I think he has like one sack. He had one sack last week, but he just hasn't been great. And I think that he's contributed in aspects that wouldn't show up on the box score, like, letting guys come free for a sack or whatever, pressures, QB pressures. He leads QB pressures, whatever. Abdul Carter hasn't been the sensation that you might think of, that, oh, he was well and away going to be the favorite for Defensive Rookie of the Year. He ain't getting it. And now, 2 weeks in a row, he has been benched for missing meetings, and I don't know what else. And it's really unfortunate. Now, look, do I think Abdul Carter is a diva? No, I don't think he is. I think a lot of people might think he is. I don't think he is. Look, I think, again, it goes into showing a little bit of accountability. Tyler says we have number one. Yes, we have number one right now. That's probably not. I want to say gooning so bad. Yeah, he was gooning in the meeting. He was gooning in the meeting. No, he wasn't gooning in the meeting. Anyone that believes that can't be on the internet. Shout out Wes Steinberg. Shout out Wes Steinberg. Love Wes Steinberg. But we have number 1 pick. Yes, we do have the number 1 pick. Abdul Carter was not gooning, but I love the jokes about it. However, this is a concern. There's no doubt that it's a concern that he's missed meetings. Now, whether it's on purpose or by accident, doesn't really matter. There's no accountability. Now, this is accountability. He's getting benched and missing first quarters and drives and whatever. But again, it's like, I understand we suck. There's no question we suck, but he's getting paid a lot of money. He's getting paid a lot of money to play football. And I don't care if we suck. I don't care if we have no wins. Play. Like, you got to be accountable. And I think that's the problem with this organization right now. There's no accountability for any problems, and they're just trying to pass the blame to everyone else, which is, I think, bleeding off into the players, because if you're not going to hold yourself accountable, the players aren't going to hold themselves accountable. And then that's going to bleed into the meetings, and that's going to bleed into the locker room. And now it's a disaster. So I think it's just a product of the environment. Not necessarily saying that if Abdul Carter was on a different team, wouldn't do the same things, but that's neither here nor there. Abdul Carter's got to fix himself, whether it's taking accountability, whatever. I think he's going to be fine, but he does need a head coach that holds him accountable for everything he does. And clearly, Dable did not hold him accountable for all the shit he did, because why? Dable was on thin ice, and he thought he can let shit slide, and he wanted to just make it the locker room environment that, no problems here, no problems there. He needs a head coach that holds him accountable. We need a head coach that holds all players accountable from every single aspect. Unfortunately, we did not get that with Dable, and we'll see what happens when we hire one. But I think Abdul Carter is going to be okay. I think he's going to be great. We just need to see a little bit more accountability, whether that comes from him or that comes from the environment of the Giants, head coach, whatever, who cares? But he needs to be held accountable. Look, he comes from Penn State. Not saying Penn State guys are divas, but there are little similarities to Micah Parsons. Abdul Carter's young. I understand that. But again, we got to grow up. This is you got to grow up fast in this league. And these guys are playing for their lives out here every single day. We can't be slacking off. We can't be doing this. I mean, this is the reality of this league. It's crazy. I can't even imagine in that situation, but this is the reality of the league. We got to hold our people accountable. Dan Muro says, the numero says, we got the first pick at the moment. I don't think that's going to last. Yeah, I agree, Dan Muro. I think they're going to find a way to win. I think next week they play Washington, then the Vikings, then the Raiders. If they don't win any of those games, I mean, wow. But I mean, hey, that's, I guess, good for us. But I'm sure they'll find a way to win maybe one or two of those games and claw back up into the third or fourth pick. And that's what we'll be. But I'm sure we're going to have like a top 5 pick. I'm sure that's what it's going to be. And again, I don't care for tanking. I get people want the first pick just to have it. But, I'm not a big – any quarterback with this offense I think would be struggling. Which is why I think I don't know about that. I think that this offense isn't awful. I think the offensive line is helping it a lot. I think that's another area of improvement. The offensive line looks great, whether that's coaching or, shout out Andrew Thomas or shout out Jermaine Illuminor. The offense has been decent. And I think if you believe that, then you got to give more praise to Jackson Dart. Defense is the issue. Oh, clearly defense is the issue. The defensive depth is the issue. Now, if we had a different defensive coordinator at the beginning of the year, how many games would we win? We will never know. Maybe we would have won more. Maybe we would have not won more. Who knows? But I think the defense is obviously an issue. And there's, by the way, I just want you to watch. Maybe it'll change next week. Just watch the defense. Actually watch them. They have no scheme. They don't know what they're doing. They literally don't know what they're doing. You'll probably beat my team week 18, the Cowboys. I don't know. I mean, the Cowboys. I don't know what the Cowboys are. The Cowboys defense is so bad. They might be worse than our defense. which is crazy. But I think the Cowboys defense is so bad, but their offense is so good, and it's insane. And I don't know. The Cowboys are I don't know. I don't know. Who knows? I could see us beating you guys week 18 and probably setting ourselves back a few picks, but who knows? Now, we would have won at least 5 of those games. We would have lost a 10-point lead going in the fourth quarter. H2O says. I'm sure we would have won more games if we had a different defensive coordinator. Unfortunately, we don't. So we got to get a whole new other squad of people in here. But again, as many problems as this team has, look, I really do believe, and I guess the chat can kind of chime in here. I do believe this. You could turn this team around very quickly. Now, I'm not telling you we're going to the playoffs next year or anything. People believe that. There are people out there that actually believe the Giants can actually be a playoff team next year. I'm not going to say that because what have they proved yet? But I do believe they can turn this team around quickly if they get the right head coach in here. If they obtain some more depth in the defensive backs, in the run defense, in the wide receiver room, I really do believe that they can turn it around enough to tell you this team could be competitive in years in the future. And I'm not expecting that to happen since, again, nothing this team has done in the past 12 years has shown you that they can consistently win. But I'm looking at the team and I'm looking at Jackson Dart and I'm saying you cannot mess this kid up and you cannot mess this team up with Cam Scadaboo, with Andrew Thomas, with Malik Neighbors. If you bring back Wando Robinson, him too, with Brian Burns, with Abdul Carter, with people on the roster that you go, hey, this is a good player. This is a player that could be on a championship team. It can. You can turn it around quickly. But you need, this is probably one of the most important off seasons for the Giants since their last Super Bowl. This is a very important off season. And what they do in terms of the decisions with the general manager, the decisions in free agency, the decisions in the draft, and the decisions in the head coach are going to determine what this team looks like in the next 5 years. So we will see what happens. Of course, I'm not holding out any hope because, of course, this team has shown me nothing. Wade says, but as a Bills fan, I want Dable back. Dable is going to, I don't know what he's going to do next year. I'm sure he'll find a place in the league, whether he goes to the Bills, whether he doesn't. I'm sure he'll find a place in the league. I don't think he's a bad offensive mind. I just don't think he was the right head coach to lead the team. Somebody get Carter to grow up a little, show him the meanings. Peas and Carrots says. You've got to pay a lot of money for playing football. I don't care for 2-11. I don't care that we suck. You play a lot of money to get to the quarterback. So we got to see that. We got to see that. And if we're slacking off, I mean, we got to grow up fast. You got to grow up fast in this league's peas and carrots. That's what I was saying earlier. How long have I been going live? I've been going live for about 43 minutes. We'll talk to the chat a little bit more. But again, this is what I kind of do. I'm telling you right now that there's a lot of problems with this team. Anything I forgot to mention, chat, anything I forgot to mention about this team struggles. We talk about head coaches. We didn't really talk about head coaches. Let's ask the chat. What head coaches would you like to see on the team? I haven't really given it much thought. I like Kuback. Chris Shula is a name from the Rams. Kuback from the Seahawks. Obviously, they haven't been head coaches before. People could bring up Mike McCarthy a lot, just as a guy that's been experienced, that has done this before, if people want that. A lot of people saying Gruden, Shula, Kuback is our guy. Those are the names I hear. Gruden, look, I love Gruden. I love John Gruden. Don't get me wrong. At the same time, I don't think he's ready to coach. I just don't think he's ready to coach in the league anymore. I'm not saying he's going to be a bad head coach. I just don't think he is going. I don't think he's going to coach in the league anymore. I just don't. I just don't. I don't even think he can feasibly with what he has going on with the NFL right now. Gruden or Tomlin? Tomlin is another name that people have thrown out. Tomlin, it'll be a situation, obviously, if we were to ever get Tomlin, we're going to have to trade for him. Now, I don't know if that is going to happen. Who knows? I have no idea. But Tomlin is an option, but he hasn't had success. He's had, again, whether you want to call it success or not, he has brought Pittsburgh winning seasons every single year. He does nothing in the playoffs, but I understand Pittsburgh fans are upset about that because they just don't want to be mediocre. They are in the beta of mediocrity right now. I think that's due to the fact that they haven't really gotten a steady quarterback, and they have other problems there too. Does Tomlin draft for the Steelers? I don't believe he does, but I believe he has some sway on draft picks. But who knows? I don't want Tomlin, Chris says. That's fine. I'm not necessarily a big Tomlin fan either. I can respect what he's done with the Steelers. I understand that people want him for the team, but I don't know if he'd be a good fit here. I don't know. We won't know. But again, we are not going to have any idea. He could easily go back to the Steelers next year. I don't know if he's on contract or not, but we'll see. Bill and his girlfriend are exactly what we need. It's exactly what we need, Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick already has said he doesn't want to be here or be in any NFL prospect. That's fine. Staying far away from here. I don't want Bill Belichick anywhere here, anywhere near here. He needs to go away. Then we can't play Tom. I'm not saying it's Tomlin's fault for being mediocre. I'm just saying that's the situation. Now, clearly Pittsburgh fans are not, Pittsburgh fans are not happy with Mike Tomlin. And I think because they're just trying to, throw blame on someone that's been there for the longest time. And I think if Tomlin came here, I'm not sure what that would mean, but I'm sure it would be interesting. But I'm not blaming Tomlin for the Pittsburgh struggles, but I can understand why Pittsburgh fans are upset about Tomlin and their situation. And of course, Real Benda, of course, if we were winning 9 games a year, 8 games a year, making the playoffs once every couple of years, we would be flipping chairs, flipping tables. We'd be popping champagne. We would do all of these things. I totally agree with you, Benda. But clearly, Pittsburgh is not happy with the mediocrity that Pittsburgh has been. Unfortunately, because it seems that I think it's more frustrating than everything because they're frustrated that they have a coach like Tomlin who is good, but they can't lead them past the hump. So I don't know. But I agree with you, Benda. Would you be opposed to Wink, Pierce, or Spags for DC? I think they're going to bring somebody new in. Again, I think we'll see who it is. But I think they're going to probably attack somebody new. Again, that's the head coach's decision. I'm sure they'll bring Spags for an interview. I don't think Spags is going to want to be head coach, though. I think he's perfectly content with being in DC. Arguably one of the greatest defensive coordinators of all time, Steve Spagnuolo. But I don't think he's going to want to be a head coach at this state of his career. I think he's fine with being a DC for the remainder of his. Benda, again, that's the crazy thing about this league, right? That's so wild, right? Like, wow, what we would kill for seasons like the Pittsburgh Steelers. We would kill for the seasons like the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's what's crazy about this league is that we would absolutely kill for 9-8, 8-9, whatever mediocrity. We'd kill for that. Kill. And that's just reality. And I think there's a certain extent to bring Tomlin in to say it's not all Tomlin's fault. But, I understand Pittsburgh. I understand the Steelers fans' frustration, though, because I understand they're just winning games, but they're not going to the playoffs and winning any games there. But I think that has something to do with the quarterback situation. I think their defense is also bad. Not great. Wait for O'Connell to get fired. I doubt he's going to get fired. I doubt it. They're not going to fire O'Connell. They're not going to fire him. I have a hard time believing that. I have a hard time believing they're going to fire O'Connell. If they do, that's the dumbest thing they've ever done. They won't do that. They won't do that. He turned Sam Darnold into an unbelievable player. Now, was it all his fault? No, but he did. But what else have I not talked about? Head coaches, Joe Schoen, Jackson Dart is one of the only bright spots this year. Giants currently have the first pick. Yeah, they do. I don't expect them to retain it. I think the Giants are going to find a way to win 1 or 2 games. They typically do. I don't know. They might not. They might have the first pick, but we'll see. H2S says, give Tomlin this offense and we get some good defensive players in the draft free agency. I promise you we're 12-5. We might be. And again, we're not going to have it. We don't know. The only way we get Tomlin is I think we trade for him. Forza says, look at all these terrible teams last year that were terrible and now go with first-year head coaches. Forza, that's why this offseason is so important. That's why this offseason is so important to get the right head coach, to turn this around quickly, because you can. You can turn this team around very quickly. You really can. I really believe you can. I'm not holding out hope on it, but I do believe there in some aspects you can really turn this team around and actually they can look good. Benda says Scatterby recovery should be discussed. Backup running backs are inconsistent. I think Scatterby is going to be fine. Now, I like Tyrone Tracy. I don't know if he's a good backup. I also don't think our backups haven't been bad. I just think, yeah, you're right. They've been inconsistent. Next season is foreplay for the Giants Super Bowl next year. Yeah. Would you imagine that? Again, I think, it's important to have perspective. It's important to understand that, to understand this team's success in next year, who knows, but there's a possibility. Jaguars are significantly, doing better than last year. Yeah. A lot of teams that have first-year head coaches do well. Look at last year with Dan Quinn, D'Amico Ryans. Who else? I don't know who else, but there have been multiple. This is why it's so important. So important. And they have to make the right decision. And I think that starts with the general manager. Do you trust, and by the way, if you keep Joe Schoen, he's hiring the head coach. You understand that? You understand that? He is hiring the head coach. You trust Joe Schoen to hire your next head coach that could lead you to the Super Bowl? You trust that? I don't know if I do. LOL, yeah, you could go from third to first, or you could be lost. Third to first? What do you mean third to first? He needs to be gone ASAP? Yeah, Jenna, he needs to be gone. He's got to go. You have no sympathy for me about Joe Schoen. He's got to go. Got to go. KJFM says, the Giants need to hire a head coach with coaching experience, no coordinators. Yeah, but who is that? Mike McCarthy? Tomlin? Who else? You're going to have names, but are the names going to be the ideal names? Maybe not. Thoughts on Dart taking big hits unnecessarily. It's self-convincing to play safe. Yeah, he's had this problem this year. That's been my biggest knock on Dart. Even before we drafted him, that was my biggest knock at him during the draft process, his recklessness. He just hasn't. Look, when you've played like that all your life, it's so easy to be like, just slide, dude. Just get out of bounds. Like, just eat your medicine. Like, I understand it's so easy to say it. When he's been playing like that all his life, when you're in the heat of the moment on the football field, you're not going to go down. You're going to play like you've been. He has to learn, because I agree with you. He cannot be taking those hits. he steps out of bounds in the Patriots game a millisecond before he hits him, we get 15 yards. We don't want to take that hit, but at least we get some credit for him going out of bounds. But he doesn't go out of bounds. That's a clean hit. That's a great hit. But again, he's got to learn to use his aggressiveness in the right ways. Like I respect it. Like if it's game on the line, he puts his shoulder down to get in the end zone. Superstar. But if we're taking hits like that on a 2nd and 13 and a second quarter when it means jack shit, we start to scratch our head saying, what are we doing here? He's got to remember that he cannot be taking these hits. And I understand he thinks he's invincible out there, but he can't. It was my biggest knock on him. He just plays so reckless. And at a time, you respect the gameness from him. You respect it. At the same time, you don't want to see your quarterback taking those shots because he's going to be living in the tent. He's going to be living in the fucking sideline. You don't want that. When are we firing Kafka? He's been awful for years. Well, he's going to be gone. I mean, you're not keeping after this year. I mean, again, he gone. Benda says, Patriots is a perfect example. Parcells would be yelling at him. Yeah, again, accountability is gone. I think accountability is gone. You need to coach accountability. You need a coach to really drill into the players' minds. And I think they got very not lucky with Dable. They got very the blasé with Dable. Like it was very like you do what you want, but we're just trying to have a fun locker room with a fun environment. It's different than a culture coach, which actually holds players accountable and punishes players when they're not doing the right things, like an Abdul Carter, even Jackson Dart. You're not saying doing he did anything wrong. Like Jackson Dart's not inherently doing anything wrong, but he's taking those hits. You got to say, yo, get down. Hire Odell as a head coach. Perfect idea. Okay, guys, I've been live for about an hour because I just got the notification. I'll wait a couple more minutes, see if anyone wants to say fire Shane, Angry Ginger says. Amen. And guys, I understand if you are rooting for the team to actively lose, you can give an excuse give your excuse to say if the team loses, they're going to fire Shane. That's a perfectly fine excuse. Angry Ginger says team is nowhere near where it should be after 4 years. 100% agree. I mean, at least some progression in some areas, but there's nothing. Angry Ginger, you're repeating what I'm saying. Way too many missed draft picks. Yep. You want to give him props for the offensive line? Fine. Andrew Thomas was a Dave Gettleman pick. Jermaine Illuminor was a free agency pick, which was a desperation move at a time where your offensive line was so bad that anyone would be sufficed. At least we don't want to hear about Daniel Jones. Well, it sucks what happened to him today. I saw the injury look bad. Whether it's a tear, I think it's a tear, but yeah, it's bad. It's unfortunate for the Colts, but AR got to come in, hold his weight. Angry Ginger says, don't want to bring a head coach or with a GM on a leash. Yep. It's exactly it. You genuinely believe that Joe Schoen can hire the next head coach? Do you really believe that Joe Schoen can lead this team to a Super Bowl? No, not me. H2O, yeah, I think he tore his Achilles, or at least it was an Achilles injury. I believe it was an Achilles tear because it was a non-cognitive injury. He went down immediately. It looked like an Achilles tear. So, yeah, he got injured. Benda says, want Dart to do well and develop with O-line, but lose games. I can understand that. I do want, necessarily, if you could give your reasoning on why you want to lose games. If you want to tank, fine. I don't like to tank because I'm not a guy that I wanted to tank last year for a completely different reason. If you give your excuse, and I wouldn't even be against it, I'd almost support it. If you want to lose games because if we lose games, Joe Schoen is gone, fine. I mean, even if we won 3 games or 2, Joe Schoen should not stay. Like, even if we win like a few games, like if we beat like the Raiders and maybe the Commanders, like Joe Schoen, that should not be a reason for Joe Schoen to stay. Like, he should be gone. And I think his press conference was so telling. Like, clearly clearly the jury was still out on Joe Shane. Clearly the ownership did not make up his mind because he was like, well, ownership will evaluate at the end of the year, which to me, it seems like, well, Joe Shane he's not free from any responsibility. Like, he could be gone, and I think he will be gone, but we will see. But he understood the questions, though. So when are we going to get a new head coach? Not until the end of the year, not until the season ends, and not till probably it depends. I don't know. Giants will win last game of the season. That's it. Maybe. Just reset. We have the quarterback, sell our top 3 pick for a haul. I could agree with that, Angry Ginger. I don't mind trading back this draft. I don't see it. I don't mind. I don't want to go back too far. But I'm sure even if we have the first or second pick, there could be a situation where we trade back with the team that really wants Mendoza or another quarterback. I don't know who's in the draft. I haven't really looked. We need Downs. Sure, I could agree with that pick. Caleb Downs is, I think, probably the best defensive player in the draft. Just as long as it's not Kafka as a head coach. No, Kafka's gone. No, he's gone. There's no way. No way, right? Guys, I'm going to end it, but I appreciate all the love, appreciate all the comments, appreciate all the support. Again, I do this every week. I go live. Today was just a different day because it was a bye week, and I wanted to come on and talk about the team. But next week, we will be back, of course, live streaming the game with 4 weeks left, 3 weeks left. How many games are left? 4. 4 games left. Commanders, Raiders, Vikings, then Cowboys. But I believe that's it. So we'll be back next week, of course. Whether you're rooting for the team to lose, whether you want to see them win, whether you want to see Jackson Dart succeed, we'll be here. We'll be active. We'll be live, of course, every single week. 2-11. Team hasn't looked good at all. Got to fire Joe Shane. Got to blow it up. That's the message I got for you. I don't trust him. If we're trying to win a Super Bowl, if we're trying to contend for a championship, as that is the goal every single year, if we forgot that is the goal, he's got to go. I don't trust Joe Shane to lead this team to the Super Bowl. I do not. And I don't think either of you do either. So I don't think he should be back. And I think we should be a completely reset that brings in new faces, fresh eyes to the organization, evaluates the organization. We understand, hey, this team has players on it that could be good. This team has a solid foundation, but we need depth. Run defense is a problem. Secondary depth is a problem. Wide receiver depth is a problem. Even offensive line depth is a problem. God forbid anyone goes down there. It's a problem. You just haven't really seen it this year, but it is a problem. And there's just problems everywhere. Kicker, punter, problem. You could turn this team around very fast because I do believe you have a solid foundation. The right coaches, the right coordinators, which can happen. It can happen in a year. It can. But they need to get it right because this is one of the most important off seasons for this team this year. One of the most important off seasons since their Super Bowl. And you cannot mess up Jackson Dart development. You cannot mess up this young core's development on the offense and even the defense as well. Brian Burns is part of the future, whether you like it or not. Abdul Carter is part of the future, whether you like it or not. So it's got to happen. And it's got to go. Y'all have Dart, Neighbors, and Scat. Solid core. I've been saying. You can't mess it up. You can't mess it up, man. You can't mess it up. Those are Joe Shane draft picks, but he fucked up. He fucked it up himself. He really fucked it up himself. He really did. I mean, as of now, we have the number 1 pick. Yes, Aaron, we have the number 1 pick as of now. I don't believe that stays, but we'll see. Giants are like my Falcons, solid core, need coaching. Yeah, I agree with your Falcons. Your Falcons kind of need a little bit of a soft reset. I think you guys have a solid team, but it's I think it's held back by coaching. I agree. I totally agree with you. I think you have pieces, but you're not all there. But hey, guys, I appreciate the love as always. We'll be back next week for the Giants versus the Commanders, I believe, at MetLife Stadium. Jaden Daniels might be out, and we'll see what happens. But guys, I appreciate the love as always. Giants Spire out. Peace out. Got to fire Joe Shane. And I understand the question.